4, 3, 2, rewind.
Rise of the Fallen, MMO Quests, Pantheon. Once again, time to pledge. Very excited. We're here to talk. Let's get this party to
share your thoughts.
Co-host Therek.
Weekly adventures. Co-host Desrin. We're almost professional.
Full disclosure.
Dangerous combination. Creating content and optimizations. Got a lore video coming. Cannot wait, which is all about drone fast and some sort of cake. Mail on a Sunday.
News and notes.
Schedule for this week.
Hot cocoa. All these people.
Supports the show. Adventuring party.
You ready? Let's go.
Let me take a deep breath.
Hello, good friends, and welcome to episode 152 of the Pantheon Plus Rewind, our somewhat infrequent podcast covering Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, and its community. This episode, we'll be thoroughly going through the sudden and surprising letter and follow-up Q&A announcing and explaining that Pantheon is returning to traditional MMORPG testing and more. So, turn that frown upside down, or I guess go down to the comments and call me a clown. Either way, I'm Desrin, and I'll be joined by my tenacious co-host Therek as we search for the light in the darkness on this rewind. So Therek.
Yeah.
You already know what I'm... Yeah. So there was something pretty disappointing that I realized as I was writing that intro.
What's that?
So there was something missing in episode 151. Do you know what it was?
Really? No, I have no idea.
Our infamous adjectives.
You mean like how we describe each other about, my tenacious co-host?
I was just your co-host. I feel I'm hurt.
Did I leave out the adjective? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I owe you an adjective apparently.
Absolutely, you do. I need 2 adjectives next time. Okay.
Well, I can't. Yeah, I was gonna say I can't do it on the fly. I got to put like some thought into this. I don't want to like, diminish the amazingness of your adjectives. But I thought that intro was amazing. The I don't know who's going on to the comments and calling you a clown, but I'm definitely turning my frown upside down because we're back sooner than I thought we'd be. I mean, how crazy is this?
I know.
We just did one. It feels like, it was just 2 weeks ago, but considering how long we were gone before that,
so much has happened. But you are back too in another way, right?
Yeah. I was a little holiday here. Usually around this time of the year, my wife and I get away for 4 days. There's a long weekend just passed here, and we usually take the Friday off as well. So we got out of town, completely disconnected from the internet and technology, and spent some time out in the woods, just sort of getting back to what's important. And I love it so much. I look forward to it every year, and it was so nice to get away. I missed you and all the crew, but
Oh no,
I knew you'd be here waiting for me.
I'm jealous, man. I miss being out in the woods, to be completely honest. And I have no excuse now. I live in a place that, everything's like 10, 15 minutes away. So I need to take your lead,
woods. Yes, you have woods at the ready. You can go to the woods at any given moment.
Yeah. Well, you know what else is at the ready?
Ooh, what's that?
Our fantabulous adventuring party.
Oh, fantabulous. Okay, now I make note. I can't use that one next week. I got to think of something else.
No, you can take that. You can take that. But really, I've been waiting, months to do this again. So let's see if I can pull this off. So we've got Daimlos on the Darkmer Bard, Breakout on the Archai Shaman, Grogu on the Human Warrior, Anton on the Darkmer Shaman Glyph Keeper, Ziplocs on the Darkmer Rogue, Sparoh on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, WikiWoo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsosaurus on the Human Warrior, Fury Wrath on the Archai Summoner, Galarian Moonsong on the Elf Ranger, Annoying Llama on the Human Monk, Stands in the Fire on the Darkmer Cleric, Churadude on the Halfling Direlord, and Acera Avienda on the Elf Ranger.
Boom. Nailed it. Boom. I heard you starting to stumble at the end there. I'm like, he's getting nervous. He's not going to make it.
I need some water or something, and I realized I just left it in the kitchen, but I'll survive. But yeah, thanks everyone for sticking around with us. It's pretty crazy how many people are still around, to be honest. But as you guys know, we did pause the the Patreon campaign and all that. And do you want to speak to that, Therek?
Yeah, no, nothing changed since last time. It's still the same state. We're going to keep it paused until further notice because we're still just doing this off the cuff whenever we feel like it. So yeah, but as always, the adventure party is still here. Churro Dude actually re-upped. I noticed when I was putting the list together this week. So special shout out to Churro Dude, who maybe the news of the week has brought him back to life, reignited his passion for Pantheon. I don't know, but and I also want to give a shout out to Sparoh, who did the graphic for this week. We didn't get one last time because I was lazy and I didn't reach out to her, but she did this one and it looks awesome. So thank you, Sparoh.
Yeah, awesome. And as usual, for everyone that drops like a super chat and a super thanks on the YouTube premiere or in the comments or whatever, you guys are awesome. And we will try to use all of that in very fun ways. So, but with that, thanks out of the way, let's get into the good stuff.
This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. All right, well, what a difference a month makes. So this week was kind of out of nowhere. On Tuesday, November 14th, VR announced they are effectively ending the 247 test mode, and they are returning to the MMO testing environment that previously existed. This came in the form of a letter that was released to the community on Tuesday. What we're going to do is go through that letter. We're going to integrate the information from that with some of the information that came from a follow-up Q&A session they did on Thursday night, where it sort of fits up where it's appropriate. And we're going to bring in some discussion points for Des and I to talk about. So that's sort of the format here. So this letter, the first paragraph, the first part of this letter talks about, it says, quote, Pantheon will drop its 247 test mode, return to the full PvE MMORPG. We are making the conversion immediately, and it will be available in the coming days. Available around the clock to pledges with pre-alpha access perks. Alpha pledges will be invited to play 24-hour sessions starting in December and continuing into next year, with the schedule to be announced. And then in the Q&A, they just sort of specified a little more. They mentioned that the 247 servers actually went down on Friday the 16th at 10 p.m. Pacific, which we're recording right now on Friday, so they're still there. And so maybe there's some last-minute folks extracting as they're stuck and they want to get out before the 10 p.m. server deadline. But the MMO servers are going back up tomorrow as we're recording on Saturday, November 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So then with regard to scheduling the monthly alpha tester sessions that are referenced in the letter, they did say that the schedule is still sort of being determined. It's going to be dependent on how things go in December with, everything, starting up again here, and that's going to be a determining factor. They did clarify that everybody's on the same pre-alpha server, so there's no different servers. Which I thought was a good clarification on their part. So Des, this is such a revelation that the 247 is no more, and we get this new full-time access for PA testers, and then alpha testers also getting in on the action with 24-hour sessions like the PA testers used to have. And this is just, it's just great news. There's no other side of it, I don't think. I have to imagine that as excited as you and I are, alpha testers have to be blown away by this, right? Like, how exciting for them. They've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's important to note that Ben Dean did clarify that this isn't what VR is considering alpha testing, just so everybody knows. This is just a way of showing some love to those alpha pledges who have been patient. So, where Pantheon's at in development, still in pre-alpha development, technically. But what this does is it really opens up, it opens up how much we can test. It changes what the play experience is. And this is where I want to sort of dig into this with you. And because my first thought was, we got to get some static groups set up now, because now us VIPs can get in there anytime we want. And we can start that long-term progression that is what was missing for me before in the 24-hour sessions, because you knew it wasn't going to last. You just, it was just to get in there, have a character, and who knows if it's going to carry over to the next one. Yes, there are still going to be wipes. They did actually follow up on this in the Q&A a little bit, which I was glad, because I wasn't sure. Joppa said that the wipes are going to be likely to be in line with the alpha tester cadence and when they get in. he said it's not going to be every time, but they do want to have somewhat regular wipes, basically to be determined.
Yeah.
So
it's still testing. So, if something comes up,
still
then
testing.
Wipes need to happen. Everybody's got to be prepared for that. And I'd like to think we're pretty used to it by now, but
Yeah. I'm kind of happy to not have to face it every time. I honestly, like I said, to me, this feels, and it feels more like a play session than a testing session. And it is still testing 100%. We can't forget that. We have a responsibility to do that. But I will say, I'm looking forward to treating this more like a regular MMO experience, a little more, at least psychologically for me. But let me ask you, Des, what was your reaction to the news when you heard this? How did it sort of strike you, and what was going through your mind when you heard this?
Well, like I had a vague sense. I feel like that something was happening. Like it didn't make sense that there'd just be quiet on the Western Front here, right?
Right.
But even I was just completely blown away just in that first paragraph, right? Just the extent of the announcement and honestly, like the candor of the announcement. Because with communication, like how you say something is just as important, if not more important than what you're actually saying. And the letter really came off as just like a completely new tone for VR, especially let's be honest, compared to the like recent facing comms. So that struck me. But yeah, the news itself, man, it was just such a double whammy. It's like, first of all, the idea that I could actually get to play Pantheon with some of my favorite people that happen to be alpha pledges. Even if it's infrequent, like who knows how often these are going to be, but I'm just so freaking excited. Like,
I mean, as you're saying this, I'm like thinking about it, and I'm like, well, so we can have like something set up for them for when the 24-hour period comes along in the month. We can have something ready to go to showcase it and like have, something, an event organized, or maybe like, specifically something to show them that we think is really cool that we've been sort of experimenting with over the course of the other times we've been playing. So many options.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'm sure it'll be absolute chaos. But
yes, it will be chaotic.
You did point out something that I did want to reiterate, and that was like, while the alpha pledges will be, getting into test in some like short sessions, it again, it doesn't mean that we've hit the alpha milestones. Like I can't be clear enough on that VR isn't trying to like, wiggle into, it's alpha now or anything like that.
Right.
Like, and I could see some people finding that a little disappointing, because it is kind of a consolation prize, right? But
yep.
I mean, the way I look at it is that VR is keenly aware of the time it's taking, and just to make the best of it, they're doing what they can to like kind of extend the olive branch, so to speak, while also getting, it really is just an occasional huge stress test, which is something like I think all MMOs could have more of before, while they're still in testing. Like the more stress tests, the better. Get this worked out, but as fast as possible. It's only going to serve the game better. And while I've stated before that I'm impressed by vinyl, I would love to see more people get to experience that and see it really get pushed to the limit. But yeah, huge win-win, man.
Yeah, it is a huge win-win. And I think, the idea of it being a consolation prize, I don't think any alpha testers are sort of like, nah, I'd rather wait around a little longer and get the full alpha experience. I think everybody would pretty much be like, sure. I get what you're saying. I get the idea there, but I'm pretty sure I know gamers well enough, and I know this community well enough. They're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to skip ahead actually. I'm just going to mention something since you're talking about the stress test and the idea of the servers kind of getting slammed, because in the Q&A they did talk about that. And I'm just going to skip up to the notes. Where did I put it in my notes here where they talked about this? How will the servers hold up was one of the questions.
Oh, right.
And they did say, they are going to bring up more servers at some point if need be, or even if not need be. I think they said they were going to, because potentially, and they've said this before, there's 10,000 potential people that could log in if alpha access is granted, right? That's a lot. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, not everybody's going to log in, but that's still like way more than the pool of like just PA testers. That's for sure.
It is. It's significant, and this is sort of motivating them to also get some other things done, which we'll talk about, to accommodate for those number of people and the content that's available. So, they're taking a wait and see approach, they said, and it's good though. It's like you said, it's the more stress testing is done, the more the servers get pushed to figure out what they can and can't handle at this point. It's a win-win, right? It's for the players and for the devs.
Yeah. Do you want to do that whole section, or do we
sure?
want to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think just to set expectations, because we have a lot of alpha pledges in our community already. That it's no secret that Throne Fast, while it's pretty big in area, only so many people can comfortably play in one zone, right? And so what I'm actually looking forward to, because we're talking about vinyl, right? I'm really looking forward to the stress test side of things, to like test the instancing. If I mentioned this last podcast as well, but the VR has like kind of shown that they want to do some limited instancing in launch scenarios. And I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity to like fully test that system. And I really hope that they do, because like the tech is there, like it's literally there now. And it's like, let's, slap it on this scenario. And then potentially for the rest of, every time that they do one of these alpha pledge levels, getting into PA sessions, it's like, it's just a stress test. It's another stress test. And like by the time we, get to the point where alphas are in for good, and we'll have more content and stuff like that too. But like, I can't imagine the servers, so to speak, won't be so solid that I would hope that people will be really impressed, and that's going to show really well. They'd be like, wow, we launched a thing and the servers didn't die. And the game felt, good because it wasn't overcrowded, like every single launch ever. Anyway, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we've said this before during past sessions when we've been able to talk about our experiences, is that the servers have been pretty stable. When we've played, we haven't had major, ongoing crashes when, there have been times when it's been a thing, but not for the majority of the time. They've been stable. They've been good. And, this way of doing it with bringing in the alpha pledges for 24-hour periods while the servers are up 24/7 otherwise is, like you said, it's the best of both worlds a little bit. Okay, so the next part of the letter I want to talk about, and this is what I was just saying. They said, quote, in addition, effective December 1st, 2023, we're lifting the verbal NDA, and all pre-alpha testers will be free to talk about the game and their experiences. The visual NDA will remain in place, which means all screenshots and or video must be approved by Visionary Realms before posting.
Boom.
Boom. Huge, massive, big decision made there. And this is going to have so much impact on so many different things. They did add some things to it in the Q&A that I think were important to mention here. They mentioned that it's retroactive. That was something I was wondering too. I'm like, can I talk about something that happened like 2 years ago?
I'm going to own up to this, because this was my question. And I'm really glad that they answered it. Yeah. Yeah, good for you. Yeah, good job. Because I was thinking like, I'd love to talk about some of the things from, a while ago. Even they're not really that relevant. I just, as a reference point, sometimes I'd like to go back and use them for that purpose. Or just like not having to worry about it. Because, we've made some references that in hindsight, I've been like, oh man, that actually was probably, too far or something. But we're just like, maybe no one will catch it, or
and honestly, when I was hearing this and I thinking about why they made this decision, Desert, I was thinking about our last episode, and I was like, all those things you said got such positive feedback about what what you were seeing in terms of progress from 247. I wonder if that motivated them at all. I honestly do, because I'm like,
I hope so.
You got such a positive response from that, from people in the community saying, thank you, Desmond, for telling us this, because this is all good stuff and this would help them. Anyway, I was sort of a tangential thought that I was having, but I don't know if that played into it, but it should have. The clarification to that, so the paragraph says in the letter that pre-alpha testers are able to talk. They clarified alpha testers can also talk about their experience. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, you still can't share previous video or screenshots from the past, so it's not it's retroactive, but the same way. You can't go back.
Right, well, in the sense of
stuff.
No, there is like the visual NDA is still there. You have to get it approved.
Yes,
that's
it needs to be approved. Yeah, and that actually goes into what the next point here is that Ben Dean jumped into the Q&A here and talked about this. They had their streamer program. They want to be able to show off the game more. They want more streamers to be able to show off the game, and they want it to be easier. He talked about the idea of using a specific submission form with a specific idea of something you might want to show. So they're working on that, it sounds like, or maybe that's just in the sort of brainstorming stage. I was kind of surprised, but that they said that the streamer program didn't sort of take off, because I guess people weren't seeing communication from them. This is kind of strange actually to hear that, because like, does it go into their spam folder? Like, what was happening? Who wasn't paying attention to like emails from VR saying, hey, we'd love to have you come and test? I thought that was a little odd to hear, but at the end of the day, they want more people coming in to do this, right?
There's also an element of timing. I think this was brought up in the Q&A, but it's a lot easier to organize people when you're not like, oh, hey, we have a test this weekend. Like, hopefully you can show up. You know, a lot of folks probably, they're like, they'll find that email a week later. And again, these were all very short sessions, that the schedules don't line up. Weekends are hard for people, right? A lot of people have family commitments. They have other things, even, people, content creators included, as we talked about in the intro. So it's just not, it sounds like they're going to try and move forward with this a little more cohesively, I guess you might say. So before, obviously I'm excited about this, but I'll let you go first on this one, Des. How do you, obviously I know how you feel, I think, about them dropping the verbal NDA, but my bigger question, maybe the more interesting one, is how do you see this changing the landscape when it comes to like development and community and all that stuff? Well, a few things. So, when I first read this, I was actually kind of conflicted, because I was really hoping for a full NDA drop, as I think everyone was. Right. But the more I kind of consider it, I'm like, okay, I can understand like why they'd be hesitant to really just kind of like open up the floodgates there. Like for one, even just in the matter of like the art, they're not lying when they say it's still getting built out and like improved, right? And and it would make sense that like if they're about to change something, like that's going to be irrelevant, in a week or something. They, maybe they don't want that out immediately. I'm sure there's plenty of other scenarios. It's not a big deal to me, but let me think of how to phrase this, because I think the biggest impact this has on the community, on me when I read this, was, what the best way to answer concern and, dare I say, conspiracy?
You dare.
Because there's a lot of rumors going around. Like since the NDA, or since the leak, the rumors have been going, and even though like a lot of them have been directly addressed, including in this Q&A, they persist. And you know what the best answer to that is? Just complete transparency.
Right.
Like, it's hard to maintain a rumor or a conspiracy when everyone involved can just verify that it's wrong.
Right. 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 Yeah.
And so I think that's where it's really going to have a big impact, is that we can corroborate, and be like, no, that's not how it is or was at all. And that's pretty freeing. and helpful to VR, I would imagine. Not to say that there's no people in PA that are or under NDA that are like gonna say bad things because they don't have good experiences or whatever. Like, I'm sure that'll happen too. But the point is that there's no blocker. We just talk about it.
There's no blocker to correcting the misinformation because everybody can see it.
Yeah.
And when enough people, you get the majority saying, this is the way it is. And you get one person saying, no, it's not this way. You're crazy. Like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, okay. We can tell you, we can see it in front of our faces. The information's there, I think NDAs a lot of the times are meant to, prevent, they're not meant to like constrain the community. They're meant to protect the development of the game, right? Like from competitors, from, ideas being sort of, out there before they're ready to be, utilized by the company that's making the game in this case. So I think that it's a good, I think in this case, the balance, the trade-off here is really, really worth it because they talk so much anyway. There's so much media content that they produce anyway that it was ended up just being constraining to the community and not for any other purpose.
The minefield was real, man. And we've joked about it a lot, but so, okay, there is one other aspect to this as far as how this is going to affect like the project, the community and everything. And this appeals to my nerd side. And we need to work out the details of this for sure, but it was confirmed that information from the PA, like descriptions, so basically, text or items or processes or how, anything about like how the game is open. Like that's part of the verbal NDA lift. And so what that means is that all of these community resources that basically can't really be updated because there's nothing to go on. Like, are you going to update the wiki with, some like video? Like it's not worth it. But when you have like the crafting system literally in front of you, you can share that data now and have it in a permanent place. And I think that has actually driven so much community growth in other video game communities that I've seen. Just being able to legitimize what the game is constructed of. Like everyone can participate in that too. Be like, hey, I'm crafting, these are the items I found. I found it from this boss. And I know people get really sensitive about like data, availability and stuff in MMOs. And like it is kind of the reality, it's not going to get hidden, but I like to look at it as a community driver. People. Yeah.
Agreed. It promotes engagement and, with the lore, that's how I've sort of looked at the lore. And there's been times in the past where we came across something or I experienced something during a pre-alpha session, some really cool lore story that I wanted to share, right? But I couldn't even like talk about it. I couldn't reference the story, reference the characters, or make sort of connections like I like to do. Now I can do that, right? If I come across an interesting lore bit in the pre-alpha session, I can make content about that. And it's the same idea. It's just a different area of engagement, right? So these are the kinds of things that I think are like you're talking about, and we're all going to do our own part that we're interested in. So, whether that's crafting or whether that's lore or whether it's, game, mechanics or whatever, it opens up so much conversation. I think
is the word. There's so much more involvement that can happen. Yeah. Oh, and I another thing that I just want to kind of like throw out there, if this goes well, if lifting the verbal NDA goes well, I believe personally, this is just Desrin opinion, I believe that it'll be a lot easier for the people that make those decisions to go further with them. And so let's like treat this as the gift that it is.
Yes. Exactly. Yep. I agree. And I hope I give VR kudos for being bold on this. This is not an easy decision for them. This is like opening up your house to like for an open house for people to come in and look around. And it's like, man, that's
and
that's
you
tough to
know
do,
your
but-
house is like totally jacked up and messy too.
Yeah,
Like,
right. It's in an imperfect state. You're like, this isn't what I want it to look like, but it's important that you see it,
right.
right now because we want to be transparent. So very, very much appreciative of that. So it was a great piece of news. Let's talk about the next part. And this is where I think we're going to have a little, get into the feeling in the community. They said, quote, "We knew there would be some uneasiness when we introduced a survival extraction testing mode, but we hoped that it would be an enjoyable, replayable experience that would provide critical data for development and potentially additional funding to accelerate delivery of the full MMO game. However, our hopes didn't line up with what you felt. The Pantheon community made it clear that the 247 test mode is not the reason they support us, and we needed to listen to that. We understand that for many of you, we damaged your trust. That's on us. For those who will give us the opportunity to rebuild that trust, we thank you. For those who are not ready to believe in us or the project again, we understand. We hope to earn back your support in the future." So Desert, for me, like this really reaffirmed VR is appreciative of the things we said in our last episode and what others have said. There's been some great videos out there. Sparoh made a great video. Nathan's, done a video that I think really spoke to how the community was feeling. And true to their word, they did allow 247 to fail fast.
Yeah.
That was something that was key for me because I'm like, I get it. You want to try it. Try it out. If it's not going to work, you got to admit that it's not going anywhere. It's not working and stop. And they did. So I give them a ton of credit for hearing what people were saying, not just being irrational, and people weren't just giving knee-jerk reactions.
Right.
At least not the ones that I think were worth listening to. We don't need to go into all those reasons again. That was in the last episode. I think it's important for me to say here, there are still real concerns about the project management with Pantheon that we voiced those. I haven't, those are not completely gone away. But I thought that them sort of doing a, mea culpa and sort of falling on the sword and showing a little humility was important. And I thought this was well worded. So, Des,
yeah.
How did it hit you?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Like, this doesn't make VR magically some perfect and deficient team, but importantly, it realigns them with who I think a lot of us, I'll just use the H word, hope that they are, just really passionate people trying their best to craft a game of their dreams. And we can forgive mistakes when we know that they're open to feedback and that they treat the community with respect. And it pains me to see that, like, some people reacting to the letter as being like, it's just PR speak or whatever. And it's like, look at their past communications. That was PR speak.
I was just going to say that. We've heard PR speak. We know what it sounds like. This is not PR speak. This is them saying,
real.
We made a mistake. We misjudged. We miscalculated something here, and you guys let us know. And we're gonna listening to the Q&A, Des, and I'm sure you picked up on this too. How different did Joppa sound during the Q&A than he did when he was doing the one before that, when he sounded really just
dude.
bummed,
That was like the main thing that came up during the Plus U2 that we did after. Was everyone was like, dude, they just sounded happier. They sounded like
a weight had been taken off their back a little bit, and again, like you said, this isn't there's no blueprint for this. They're an inexperienced amateur dev team doing the best they can. They're going to make mistakes, and I'm not one to always say the community is right in every possible instance. That's not what we're saying here. It's not what I'm saying, and I know you don't feel the same way. Sometimes the community is who are we? Who are we to listen to? We're not developers. We're just gamers, right? So, but in this case, there was such a real well-reasoned reaction and negative response to this that they heard it, they changed, and we're going back.
And like, I just want to add to that because I think this is starting to come up a little bit about like, what is the right amount of time for them to listen to feedback? Because some are calling this a knee-jerk reaction or a panic or something like that. Mm-hmm. And, if this was a panic, don't you think they would have like pulled back as soon as they saw the reaction of the leak,
Right.
Especially considering, as we'll get to, like how short, how little effort it takes to put this back to MMO.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like the time that they spent was perfectly appropriate. They spent a little
I
over a
feel so.
month. Like, we're going to have them try it and receive feedback and then make a decision. And that whole time they were saying, a decision hasn't been made. A decision hasn't been made. And then, boom, a decision's been made.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was an appropriate amount of time for sure. So if we look at the Q&A then and get some other areas they talked about, there was actually tons here. I was surprised at how much information came out of this. A really important question was asked is how will the funding be accelerated with the switchback now? Because that's
Big question,
the reason for this. Yeah. Joppa said they're considering different options. That 247 wasn't the only option. They're looking at an early access subscription as a possibility, something, nothing was committed to, but that's something that they're considering. They have heard lots of good ideas from the community that they've heard.
There have been a lot. I've seen a lot of them. I've
did you see the one on
some.
Yeah. Did you see the one? This is kind of a joke. Did you see the one on Reddit about like $10 plushies or something? Really stupid.
I didn't see that.
It was kind of bizarre. I laughed when I saw it, but they also said they have really supportive investors, and I thought that was an interesting comment. Because we heard Co's reaction to this. So I wonder what the communication was there. That might have played a role in this, and I think that's important that they keep their investors supportive of what they're doing. And Joppa emphasized they are not out of money.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to make that very clear because he really made an effort to make that clear, and that's good. I'm glad they're not out of money. I will say, I think they cannot be out of money and still be in a tricky spot financially. It's still. Game development is a high risk proposition, and I think that they do need to generate some revenue here. They need to generate some income to continue development. Ben Dean was previously very clear, saying that at the current funding levels, we're looking at a really long time to launch. So the problem that potentially monetizing 247 was meant to solve continues to exist. Crowdfunding has slowed. They need to generate some funding, but they're looking for other options.
As always, I think
out,
Ben would say,
Yeah, as always is right. Absolutely. And they've been known to try different things, and this was one of them. It didn't work, but whatever they come up with down the road, we'll evaluate it on its merits. And that's the only thing you can say, is if they're not out of money at this point, they can continue to develop the game.
Yeah.
That's all we know, and that's probably all we'll ever know. So
I think that's about as fair a take as I could imagine. And I think honestly that's a nuance that I already see a lot of folks missing. Since the announcement, like I've noticed quite the duality, I guess. A lot of folks still just are like, I guess I'll just say refusing to believe that they aren't out of money. Like I still see like the most common thing is people are saying like, oh, like I guess they're out of cash. It's like even in response to the Q&A, well, hilariously enough, because they actually were a little bit out of order, right? Like they front loaded this pretty early on in the Q&A, which I think was really good, right? Because that was like something that was just really getting out of hand. Like everyone's like, project's dead. Like they're. No.
Yeah.
But also, like a lot of folks are misinterpreting on the other side of it and saying like, oh, well, like everything's fine, indefinitely. And that's not how it works either.
Right.
But like how I see it is this, okay? And hopefully I paint this picture as clearly as possible. Their team, if you guys remember, grew a lot in 2021 and 2022. And it grew a little bit this year. So they seem to kind of be leveling out. So until they get further funding, I'd imagine that this is kind of the team size that we have until, something changes. That's because this is how they've operated for years. Like,
right.
It's so progress will be limited to what the team that we have can do. It's, simple as that. And how long that can be maintained, who knows? Like they've talked about this like kind of before that we can't really say, it's not nothing super like clear, but I don't want to get too far into it, but I believe that they are actually somewhat financially responsible. And I think the project lasting this long is a testimony to that.
That's a well said. Yes.
But yeah, considering that, 2023 has been what many are calling the year of layoffs in the games industry with, last someone there's like a chart now because it's so ridiculous. Over 7,000 layoffs just from like the bigger companies in the gaming industry.
Wow.
Just this year. And I mean, VR's not laying anyone off. Actually, there hasn't been any kind of layoffs in any kind of recent history. So just take that as you will, obviously it can't last forever, but I mean, they've maintained this ship for a long time.
They have, and that's one of the pieces of their identity is they are very, cognizant and mindful of the dollars and where their dollars go, and their hiring has always been a bit of a barometer as to, where I think they are at in terms of their confidence in development. When they bring on new people, we always see some new artists, and then there's always this push. And yeah, like you said, they don't seem to be struggling to keep their staff, and this is probably a good place to actually clarify something on this topic that's been subject to a lot of misinformation in the community. I know you're like been passionate about clarifying this. So I thought we needed to say this, but Joppa is not the only developer on the project. I cannot believe how much this got spun out of control. He said during the last, not this Q&A, the one before, he said he was the only designer, the only full-time designer, right? A developer and a designer are not the same thing. Like,
yes.
listen to the words, right? Because they have many developers, right? So
many developers for designers.
Yes. Anyway, I mean, I don't know what else you want to say about that. I figure it's just, you got to put it out there.
It pains me because like publications got this wrong. Like it's your job, and this is such a simple thing, but yeah, this is spun way out of control. And while they've said multiple times, and you can make this what you might, but even the part-time people, they put in a lot of life into this, and that's passion. Like the ones that do that have made it very clear that they literally just do it because they want to. And yeah, I know people will spin that as well, but like the truth is that they don't have one full-time person. It's if this is why I can't wait for the verbal NDA to drop and all those channels to open up, man. Like you'll see how many people are working on, and really digging in on this game. But anyway,
the pink names are continuously expanding. We know that. So one of the real big pieces from this Q&A that I thought it was really exciting for the future going forward. Joppa talked about how are they going to increase the limited engagement problem they had with the MMO. Like that's one of the precepts that caused 247 to be considered. So Joppa talked about focus testing, and this is something they've done in the past. He said, be prepared for more opportunities for things like, focus testing. Like he called them sort of strike teams. It's just sort of a way of describing them. That's not an actual term, but so like, for example, if you're of this level range and you can come to this area at this specific time to do this specific thing, they want to do more of that. They've done that in the past. But the big piece here was, he said, new zones are going to come online basically in pieces. Those are my words, not his. But he said players are going to be able to sort of fast travel to these small pockets within the larger zone and then sort of be contained within those where they can see out into the zone, but they just can't get there yet because it's not playable yet. But you're going to have these spaces within, like he was talking about Silent Plains, I think, as an example. And once they get to a certain point of development, then you can start to move out into the zone from that little bubble or that little corner of the zone that you can get into at that point. So a way of seeing the zone in the game before it's playable. So I thought that was really, really cool and a new way of doing things. I mean, this is different. So they're going to get, they also said they're going to get Avenir's Pass and Hell in Their Cave back online pretty soon. Joppa said basically if it wasn't for the holidays, they'd be in for December, which is incredible and awesome.
Yeah, I think,
right?
I mean, we haven't even got into the class stuff yet, but it's like
we'll get there.
It's like they suddenly realize after, shouting for years, they're like, I mean, it's not like this. There are other blockers that prevent, these things from coming online. So not saying that they're just refusing to do this stuff, but it's like, classes and zones. That's all we want.
Classes and zones, man.
But yeah, dude, this was one of the highlights for me. I mean, I had many highlights, but this is something that I've kind of been advocating for let's say literal years. And I think the strategy that they kind of laid out here, it just fits so perfectly. Like, obviously I'm kind of curious to see what the pacing looks like. Because there's still no getting around the sheer volume of content that still needs to be made. Like,
right, and that was something that Ben Dean said earlier, and he said, look, we still have tons of content that needs to be built out. We still have so much to do. So right, exit still exists.
Yeah, I do like the approach though, and I mean, obviously, I really hope it plays out well. But first of all, I'll 100% be participating in any kind of focus testing. Like I'm probably like one of the annoying people that has been bugging VR about this for a long time. Cause there's something about focus testing that has this element of camaraderie that I just really enjoy, where everyone's working together on something, it's like, it makes you feel like you're part of something. Where if you're just kind of play the game, or just a general test crafting or something, it doesn't have that so much. And Ben actually, I think Ben was it or Joppa mentioned an instance that happened the night before the Q&A where they had an impromptu raid, he said, where they found out all sorts of stuff just because the community got together for a thing. Sorry.
On December 1st, we'll tell you what that thing was.
Absolutely. But yeah, the way that they're going about it, because the other element to this is that they're going to reuse the tower in a sense as a portal hub to send people to these areas, because they'll be basically little pockets within the zone. Hey, we want you to test Demeth Village in AVP, or Mad Run, which we'll get to that, right? And they can just box off that area, invisible walls, temporary, but box off that, throw people in there, rigorously test it, because there's no reason for us to be running around a zone that's it's just terrain,
right.
So whatever, box us in, we'll do it, man. And it means that we get to see stuff more consistently instead of in these huge lumps. And I think that really matters right now. But anyway, I'm rambling again.
No, I agree with you. I think you've said it well. That's exactly what I think this is going to do for them. So you mentioned the tower still being there, and that was interesting to me too, because they're basically keeping that in as a means of letting people access the quests and stuff. So Joppa sort of said people in previous tests, there was lots of tasks and quests out there that people never did because they were out of the way, they didn't know about them, or they overlooked them. So he's keeping these, the 11, like you said, in there.
Oh, I'm going to correct you on that, because that's not the case.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
11 are actually getting distributed into Avelia as...
okay, I misunderstood that.
Yeah, so Avelia is kind of going to be the hub for the 11, and the 11 will transition to where they're supposed to be as the world gets built out. But they are also going to be basically stand-ins for the task givers in Avelia as well. So the tower is literally just a hub. That's it.
It's just portals and nothing else.
That's what they said, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So this is all stuff that we'll have to figure out as we get back in and sort of see what it's like. The other thing that's being carried over from 247 is the social windows. And I was so excited to see this, because that was honestly one of the things from 247 that I'm like, this is what I expected to see. Like, this is the looking for group, the friends, the, who, all that stuff. That's all coming in. And I thought that was a really good idea, an obvious idea, but still.
But I mean, I even think they went a little above and beyond on that, because it's like, and this was shown in the footage. It's not December 1st yet, but you could see tabs for not only, who and LFG, but LFM, looking for more, and friends. Like they kind of threw a lot in at once.
Right. So the question was basically like, what's coming with 247 and what's going back into the MMO, and all the things you expect that were in the MMO previously are going back in. Group size of 6, you can form your groups anytime, anywhere, no more PvP. Although Joppa still was like, at some point when it's appropriate, we'll get PvP back in. I'm like, that time is not now. Death mechanics are back in, res spells. He did say the near-death experience is going to be a little more intense. I thought that was
it sounds like it's just like a faster bleed out.
That's what I sort of got from it,
because they still want that, they still want people to lose stuff, they still want people to be put in these positions where there's a chance that, stuff doesn't go smoothly. And so I'm all for this. Like, I was surprised by how long you could be near death before. So this is great.
So this is closer to your expectations for what near death should be.
Right.
At least the way it sounds. And this was sort of like where you really hit the point hard continuously that none of this stuff, was a waste of time. So what, when you heard all this and you sort of got validated by that, right? I'd imagine.
I would be lying if I said I didn't feel that sense of validation. Especially because I wasn't doing it. I had no idea. Honestly, when we did that rewind, I had no idea. I was just like, this needs to be out there,
Yeah.
I do want to kind of highlight all the points that I did mention, and kind of they're getting confirmed, so to speak, and or validated, I guess, that 247 wasn't a spinoff. Not only was it not a waste of time, but it wasn't a spinoff in the sense that not everyone, but a lot of people were making it out to be. The whole, we're wasting months of development time, that they're just throwing away, or that because they're switching back from 247, that, they just, wasted however many months or whatever. This is clearly saying this is all stuff, and but pretty much everything from 247 remains in some way. And they said it's only taking days to transition the project back. I was even blown away by that. I was so happy to hear that.
I know. I was shocked because I have this little later on my notes, but when we would play and I would be like, Desmond, can we just load the last save when it was the MMO? Can we just can we go back to that? Because you were like, nope, no, they can't do that. I'm like, well, and of course I believe you. What do I know, right? But apparently they can. Apparently they just,
to some extent, yeah. To
flip one server down and flip the other server back on.
It sounds like it was. There was a little bit more than that, but it was it was definitely not a huge time sink at all. And I think that really does speak volumes to those that either weren't listening to VR when because they literally said these things. They said this during the whole fiasco, and
I mean, honestly, I'm glad that what they wanted from 247 in the time that it was active was fruitful for them. At the end of the day, I think that's what it's about. It was fruitful. We're going to see the fruits of it. And I hope, and this is kind of jumping ahead to my conclusions, but I hope that the MMO can provide just as much fruit as 247 did.
Yeah.
Because, that's going to be what their next challenge is to make it as useful developmentally as 247 apparently was for the month that it was live.
That was clear in the Q&A, right? Was that 247 worked until people stopped playing.
Right, until people stop playing, and that's why it didn't work. In the end, it's not going to work because people just aren't going to play it, and it's not going to have long-term viability. but they came to that conclusion as well. So, in terms of what did come out of it, let's talk about that, because that was a big question. They said they wanted to know in the Q&A what classes are coming here, and the Paladin is in.
Yeah,
the Paladin is currently
was
in.
just dropped. Like they said that in the PA recap, right? They're just like, oh yeah, Paladin's in.
Limited abilities.
Yeah, not completely,
but it can fulfill its role. Joppa did say reckoning points, which are part of the Paladin, build their resource
class resource
kit. Yeah, they said that should be working properly by Saturday, and Joppa went on to say even Warrior is coming in maybe by this Saturday. If not, it will be by the next patch. So I know there's tons of Warrior players out there. Grogu, I think, is the one that comes to mind.
Warriors,
he's our Warrior.
Warriors, like in my head, I'm like Druid, then Warrior. Like that's actually was my plans as well. Yeah. So I'm stoked. And again, validation, right? How long has Joppa been like, with the tools that I have, I can, as long as there's, art assets, like he can't create all the other, but as far as like the mechanics and stuff, he's like, I can throw together a class in, a few days or whatever. And everyone since has been like, well, why don't we have classes now? And then he asks on the, what was it? Joppa just straight up asked it like, hey, you guys say you want Paladin or you want classes, right? Like, are you okay with them being incomplete? And just unanimous yes spam. And then he was just like, okay. And then like a week later, Paladin. Like, and then what, a week after that? A week and a half after that? Boom, Warrior? Like
Warrior they're starting work on the pet system this week.
Oh my gosh,
so that means the summoner, the enchanter charm ability, some aspects of the druid, and the ranger.
Step in that
caveat
direction.
On the ranger. Yeah, they said the physical, projectile sort of stuff, they still need to work on that. So it's not quite as close, but there was an interesting, Joppa got really excited about some changes to the class and race matrix. I don't know what he's talking about, but it's imminent. Whatever it is, it's imminent, it sounds like.
Well, I don't know. So he said late this year, early next year, there's going to be a change to the class race matrix. And he's like, I'll leave you guys to try to figure out what that means. But dude, this got me stumped. Because maybe people have forgotten, but like Necro and Bard are already on there. So that's not it.
Can't be that.
So yeah, I'm kind of at a loss. I think like the craziest thing, and I don't know how I would feel about this, because bloat or whatever, but the craziest thing would be like an actual, like a new race or a new class.
Man, I don't know about that. Maybe, but I'm thinking it's some unorthodox combination that has kind of been tossed around. Like, I mean,
maybe it's just actually a rework, of the race class.
Cover your ears, Sparoh, but I'm going to say it. Maybe the Scar Ranger. Maybe the Scar Ranger is coming to life. We don't know.
Well,
but,
if that was changed, because Scar can be Rangers on the Matrix right now, what if they cancel that? No, I don't think they're going to cancel that. But that, maybe it's a mind.
If that's the case, then we saw that video from Sparoh where she was really happy about 247 going away. Just wait for the next one when they cancel Scar Rangers.
As she's going to make a video where she's to her eye.
Yes,
I don't,
blubbering. Oh man, that would be hilarious. And the other one was races.
Speaking of,
apparently we're gonna see the ogres and gnomes coming soon. VR soon. But one interesting thing is that ogres are going back to the way they used to look. If you think back in like early, 2016, 17, 18, how ogres, before they were the red version of the ogres, they used to look quite different. So we're going to see some different ogres.
And the fun thing about this is that they're hailing back to the older concepts for a lot of this stuff. But they did also add that, they are really wanting to, how did he put it? Like improve the silhouettes of the races to be more like recognizable, right? So you're not just a big human, which I mean, props for that. Like, Vanguard, part of my heart, but I can't deny they're just different sized humans. But they also said that for the races that have changed, they will be releasing concept art, like new concept art that hones in that design and that silhouette and everything. But looking back at that old ogre concept, I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I like the old. Yeah, I am too. I like the old ogre designs for sure. I mean, I like a lot of the old concept art for sure.
Except the
Even
elves.
the very no. Even the elves were fine. The Liv Tyler elf. Do you remember the
I
Liv
know,
Tyler elf?
I know how
She
like
was awesome.
how big of a kind of a hoot that's been in the community for like ever. That the elves
Yeah,
be like.
man.
Oh. Anyway.
Oh, maybe they're not going to be so short anymore. We'll see. So the next one, I'm going to kind of skip over the next one because they talked about how like hunger and thirst were part of 247. Is that still going to be in the game? It is, but it's just being sort of toned down to a basically reduced HP and mana.
I'll fight about
reduction,
that. But,
regen.
we can move on.
Yeah. A question was asked, where's the XP going to be coming from? Because 247 was basically only coming from task completion. So Joppa said it's going back to the way it used to be. Primary progression is through, combat and through, group and killing and camping, all that stuff. So task XP is being dramatically reduced. So,
yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
You already see the wall of text, so like
Yeah.
I'm
and you got something to say.
because this is something I'm so passionate about, like that. These quests or tasks or whatever. I mean, my thing has always been like no XP, give different rewards, or players feel obligated to do them. But so like, I'm definitely for tasks not being the primary progression path. He clearly said that, like exactly. But I do fear that any XP at all will kind of make players feel obligated to do them. But that is thinking more in terms of release. For now, and this was proven with 247, I actually hope that they are very rewarding in every way, because it drove players to do all those tasks. Like that was the point, was like you would be stupid not to do these tasks because that is kind of like how you go. And
it's a great point.
So I think they're pretty essential in just getting things thoroughly tested. And I kind of hope that they continue to use tasks in that way. And I wouldn't mind them having, pretty big XP bonuses for that purpose, and change it later.
Yeah.
But the other side of this, and I don't want to gloss over this because this is a bigger deal than I think people realize, but it's that Joppa specifically said that the driving factor behind doing tasks is actually reputation and the NPCs having their like tiered merchant kind of system, like tiered unlocks for the NPCs. And I super love this. Like it's like semi-horizontal progression, So you really like, the example is like, if you really want to buy like a good crafting schematic or something, you do tasks for specific NPCs to unlock those things. And I think that's probably the most simple example, but it's such a cool sideways thing where you're like, I have a goal and I'm doing these things to reach that goal. And you might get some XP in the meantime, but like the real reason is some kind of, other tertiary benefit. And I love that. And I can't wait to talk about them more in December because there's a little bit more to it than that. You can't just max everyone out, or, well, it would be difficult, but there's more to it.
Yeah, there's more to it. It depends on how much of a one-to-one it is from what it was in 247. Like, it was one of the aspects of 247 I actually didn't mind that I thought was pretty cool. And I think that's sort of the idea here. And we've talked about this in the past about, the idea of reputation and opening up new tasks, opening up new avenues of, conversation and tasks that they provide you based on reputation is a good thing. And we always seem to enjoy that in games and MMOs. So the next part actually was related to a part we talked about earlier, just talking about showing off some of the new areas. And Joppa was explaining that, like they have this 2-pass approach when they're creating new content. Like, so in the past, they've only wanted to show us content when it had both passes had been done. There's enough detail. They're lightening up, it sounds like, and they're going to show us areas when we do these, sort of pockets of the zone, as we talked about earlier. they'll have gone through one path. They won't have that extra stuff. So he gave the examples of Mad Run in Aventur's Pass has spiders and werewolves. It's meant to be this sort of themed hive area. And
they won't
now,
have the drippy poison. That was the meme was, oh no, we won't see the drippy poison.
You know what I heard was like the webbed bodies.
Yeah,
he talked about like bodies being wrapped in spider webs. And I'm like, totally fine. That's of course,
can deal.
That's we can deal with that, right?
I did like how they phrased this. If I remember right, they said like they need a different mindset, right?
Yeah, a different mindset.
And
exactly.
I couldn't agree more. And this seems like a mindset shift.
It does. Absolutely. Okay, so that covers the letter and the Q&A. Let's give some final thoughts and wrap this part of it up. I'll start and just say that, of course, I'm glad the MMO is back. When we would play 247, like I said, I would ask you, can we have that instead and do that instead of this? Because I think this is going to actually, Desiree, I think this is going to invigorate the community.
I hope
back
so.
in there. Yeah, and test the hell out of this game and play and be in there. Combining this with that 24/7 access is absolutely the right move. Pre-alpha testers, alpha testers, let's get in there. Let's show VR that we can live with limited content to help them out. I think it's incumbent upon us to help them not get into that same situation. And when you combine that with the NDA dropping and like the engagement that it's going to create, like we talked about here, this it feels like we're moving forward. It feels like we're moving forward in a very positive way. I think we would be remiss not to acknowledge what 247 did, because it did, and we laid it out as you did, Des, on the tangible things that were accomplished. And I want to see that continue. So our job as the community is to, I think, and this is my opinion, you're entitled to your own opinions, is to show VR we didn't need that extraction game to give them the data they needed, right? So that's where I land with this, and I'm like super gung-ho to get back in there and do that. So
yeah.
what about you?
I love that kind of rallying cry to be like, I'll show them like
in the name of the warrior, get in there.
Because so we can't recognize the good that 247 did without recognizing the bad as well, right?
Absolutely.
Their reputation has been further tarnished at least to the greater community. I think is pretty hard to argue.
Absolutely.
And I do believe they're taking the right steps to make up for that. Obviously, we're talking a short duration right now, but this needs to be maintained, But I will echo your sentiment. If you're listening and you're a PA level pledge, log in and show VR that this is the right way forward. Even if 247 kind of like, just pissed you off to the point where you were just, slamming it on a daily basis, in every Discord
right.
that you could find and social media and whatever, like still your login is just as loud as a voice, and it is going to resonate with both the dev team and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, investors. It's because we're on that final thoughts bit, so I'm gonna lean into the investor thing. So as you reminded us earlier, Ben said pretty clearly that crowdfunding is slowed. That's out there, but I'm under the impression, and I think this is pretty reasonable, that crowdfunding is actually not the main source of revenue for this project, especially now.
Right.
So I believe that the louder that we speak with our logins, our concurrency, our feedback, and frankly our ravenous desire to see the project come to life, the more eyes and ears and wallets will be interested in pulling pulling this project kind of, to the finish line, faster. But we're going to be rolling forward anyway. And the more progress the game sees, the less risky it's going to feel to investors. And I know people are going to be throwing around 10 years for 10 years. It's never going to stop. But the truth is, the
right.
closer to done it is, the less risky it is. And if there's a growing positive sentiment. It like investors can see that. And so you just pair all that with like there's this large community interest, and it might actually be enough for some additional funding to come in and just make it happen faster. Like I truly believe that is actually the main way, like to speed this project up. Like crowdfunding, I would love to have like some way to just, revitalize that, but I it's going to be hard, right? I guess to summarize, like everything's not perfect, but I feel like we are at least on the same page as VR again.
Right.
And frankly, like that matters to me a lot more than most things. So.
Yep. Well said. I think we're on the same page, and I'm looking forward to the future is looking good at this point. So, let's do a quick look at the calendar that they put out for the month of November, because it is already the middle of November. It's the 17th today. But we do still have the community spotlight coming up on the 20th. That's next Monday. That's our friend Doug Bug who's getting the feature.
Showed up for the Plus U last night. Or
yeah. He's been
Thursday
calling into the Plus U. Yeah, super good guy, super fun to talk to. So check out Doug Bug on the 20th on their website for the community spotlight. And then the producer's letter for the end of the month is on November 30th. So we'll get a further update as to what's going on with VR at the end of the month and anything they want to reveal then. So that's fun. Quickly look at our Pantheon Plus. Now, I don't have the most current calendar for reading purposes here, but it's pretty much the same as what it has been. We are, of course, streaming many, many times during the week. In fact, I think we're streaming 5 days a week now at this point. Mondays, our Midnight Crew, the After Dark crew, is still playing the Quorum Project in EverQuest. That's on our Twitch channel at midnight Eastern. Tuesdays is our EQ MMO 101 team playing EQ2 on Varsoon. We were just talking before we started streaming that we are leveling quickly. There was an XP bonus weekend this past weekend, and Desrin got an alt up very quickly. So that's Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern on our Twitch channel. And then the 201 team, which sadly has been off the last couple of weeks because, again, Thursdays. That's 7 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel right here. And we have a lot of fun with that. And then on Saturdays, we're playing For the King 2. That's during our Saturday Morning Heroes show with me and Desrin and Mr. Cautleshire and Annoying Llama. Got that coming up tomorrow. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, I am too. And tomorrow is tomorrow from when we're recording. This is the Saturday. Yeah,
I should. I'm speaking in the present.
I know. It's hard.
Often try to avoid. And then Sundays is Quest and Coffee, where we're playing Baldur's Gate 3. That's me, Sparoh, Fate, and Breakout. We had a great adventure last time. There was all kinds of shenanigans happen. Fate had an unfortunate rolls on her stream. She was pretty bummed out about that, but we'll make up for it.
Poor unfortunate rolls.
Yes, that's the way it goes. And that is the VR news and notes for this week.
The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right. Ooh, it's been a little while, and I am not going to go super far back on these, but it's lovely to have a community spotlight. And since the announcement and everything, there's been a resurgence, I would say, in just media covering Pantheon. And I'm going to pick out, I'll just say it, our favorites for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll expand out, especially if we start getting info more often, so that we are justified to keep doing the rewind a bunch. We'll expand, but gotta highlight Nathan here. So he's done a bunch of stuff. So I'm just gonna go in like chronological order here, and as usual, all of links straight to these videos, and they're gonna be right in the description for you guys. But the first one was Pantheon MMO, your prayers have been answered. Big update. That was with the initial letter. So good stuff there. And then the next one was, Q&A, the devs talk, Nathan reacts live. So he actually started doing while it was going on.
Like a watch.
Yeah.
Party.
So he was and he had a little bit to say afterwards and all that. And then it was actually kind of nice. He came by the Plus U after he finished that one. But the VOD for that is there as well. And then oh my gosh, did I mess this up here? Let's see.
You just doubled it up. You just need to skip down to the Redbeards. Or no, you got to do the next Nathan one first.
The next one.
In my opinion, this is the best one.
This guy's such a maniac. Nathan is insane. So he
in the best way
put out this thing, Pantheon MMO, the documentary, the epic saga.
The double colon.
Just
I love it.
There's no way I can describe this except for it is the most Nathan response I've ever seen.
Look, there's a lot of videos of his that I love. Don't Stab Your Friends is a good one. Plant Man, the original OG Plant Man, is a pretty good one. This one might be better than both of those. This was, the puppets are in it, and we've got a Savanya puppet now, by the way.
Savanya puppet.
I don't know if this is the debut of the Savanya puppet. It's the first time I've ever seen the Savanya puppet, and she doesn't disappoint. It's amazing. This is vintage Nathan. If you ever
Nathan.
So fun, man.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah, it's so fun, and you know, it's been a tough bit of time, and I feel like this video, in some way, offers like, I don't know, closure, or it's like a capstone on an era. And
yeah, it does. It feels like he doesn't hold back. Like he's an open book, right? He's an emotionally open book.
Everything. Yeah. And I mean everything. I'm not going to spoil it, but everything. Go watch that. And now we're going to get into a great video by Redbeardflynn, which I just love the title of this. It says, "Did Pantheon Rise of the Fallen save itself from itself?" And this is
he's great with those titles.
Seriously.
He nails it every time.
And this is in response to the the letter and I believe the Q&A, if I have my timelines correct. I should have made a note about that, but yep, another thing to check out, to go over that and get his thoughts. And then lastly, I've got to reshare Sparoh's reaction to reading the letter for the first time, because it was totally like candid, and it was just so neat and genuine. If you didn't know, and she explains this, she basically read like a bit of the letter and she was like, I need to record this. And so the whole reaction is like live as she's reading it. And it was emotional. And
yeah, it was. I mean, because you see her reacting live in real time because she was one of the people that was so upset by this, right? By 247. And it basically, like you said earlier, it was sort of sworn it off, was sort of like, I'm done with this until I don't like this and I'm not going to do this. You know?
I mean, going from the last video previous to this to this one is like, you couldn't contrast any better.
It's just super genuine, and I think that's what people are looking for, and I think that's why it resonated with so many people.
Yeah,
like you and me included, right? It's just very genuine.
Yep. And lastly, a little random shout out, I guess, partially related to Pantheon, but I want to remind everyone that Redbeardflynn is putting on his own Scuffed Game Awards show. And it's for, upcoming and release games. It's for content creators and all sorts of stuff. I believe by the time this goes up, the nominations are closed, but voting, the actual voting, will be open. So choose your games from different categories, even a little bit of a content creator popularity contest.
Yeah, we're in there.
We're in there.
Go vote for Pantheon Plus.
But who knows? I might be involved. With some other people might also be involved in the final showdown of all of that.
Oh, nice. Nice. I don't even know about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But you should totally check that out. He probably has a video up on it. Since we're recording, it's not up yet, so I can't whatever. But you know where to find him. Redbeardflynn on YouTube. He'll have instructions on how to vote and everything. You should totally vote. He got over 400 votes just for the nominations. So
right,
it's going to be great.
I think Embers Adrift dev team actually did at everybody in their Discord to try and get people to vote.
Oh yeah, that's the way to go.
He's getting some traction.
But yeah, as you guys know, if you follow Pantheon Plus, we love our fun little ceremonies, right? So,
We do, very much so.
but that is going to be it for this episode's community spotlight.
2 moons in the sky, I can climb up so high. Mysterious things, perception pings, Therek's rainbow. We can go anywhere. Group adventuring, explore everything. It's Therek's rainbow. Jen can ride anything. Tales to grow, it's the lore you know on Therek's rainbow.
Therek's rainbow.
Therek's rainbow.
Therek's rainbow.
For the lore you know this week, I got something a little different for everybody, just like last time. This one is interesting because after our last episode in our Discord, we were just hanging out and all of a sudden we had this influx invasion, a raid from folks at a company called PVL Audio. So if you're on the internet, which you clearly are, you know that when somebody comes barreling into your internet space and you don't know who they are, you're a little bit like, what the heck? Who is this? What's going on here? But the team from PVL Audio came in with such enthusiasm, and they are, who you want to know who they are? They are a team that has been contracted by Visionary Realms to create audio for Pantheon. And they've been going at it hardcore, and they don't just walk into a room. They come into a room and become the life of the party. And I have to say, it's been so nice having them in our Discord because they've shared so much information about what they're doing, how they do what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve and accomplish with the music and the atmosphere stuff that they're doing for Pantheon. I'll just read you a quick blurb from what their audio director, his name is Phil, introduced himself in our Discord. He said, "Greetings, everyone. I'm the audio director at the team at PVL Audio, and our current focus is on enhancing the audio experience in Pantheon. We're currently immersed in creating music and sound effects. We have high hopes for incorporating voiceovers in the near future. If any of you have thoughts, concerns, or suggestions, please don't hold back. We welcome your input." And then he gave some contact information. And he just basically, every time he speaks, he finishes it with "rock on," because he's just that excitable. And these guys are from, I believe they're from Montreal. I know they're from Quebec. I'm not sure if it's Montreal, but they are a great bunch of people, and I can't tell you that enough. What I wanted to do, because this is the lore segment, is that the connection between music and the lore and the feel and the world building is so essential. And when we've talked about this before, about how music, everybody has their own sort of preference for music in MMOs. Some people turn it off, some people are really into it, and that's their main thing. I thought it would be good because he dropped a track in our Discord. So this is about 2.5 minutes, and this is something they've been working on. It's obviously not the final product, but it is a track that you'll hear some, how would you describe it, Desiree? Flavor with some previous music that you may be familiar with. And I think it is so nice and so good. So I wanted to include it. So 2.5 minutes, sit back, turn your headphones up a little bit, and just enjoy this little piece from the PVL Audio team. and that is the music of the lore you know.
Nice.
And that is the show. So what a great time to come back so quickly after the last one, Desert. At this rate, who knows? We may be back sooner than you think, sooner than we think. Even
We'll see what that producer's letter holds. Or is that I might have my timelines off a little bit, but I also forgot to mention that you can keep an eye on the progress tracker or development tracker, I think they call it, because that doesn't always just like update with the producer's letter anymore. So if patches go up, they're probably going to show up on that. So even if you're not in PA, you can kind of see what's going on, which is super cool. I'm excited to just cover all this, man.
Well, and that's exactly right? Like, and with the NDA, the verbal NDA going down December 1st, look for some new ideas coming from us. Like Desrin, you've got tons of ideas. I know you're like so brimming. I feel like your muse is speaking to you right now. And I always tell people, I'm like, dude, when your muse speaks, you listen, act, don't wait, because it'll go away. So there's possibilities that we are going to be exploring for sure. So keep your eyes and ears open for our channel, on the channel here, both here on YouTube and our Twitch channel. Join our Discord, like I said, if not for the audio stuff that we talked about, for all the other stuff, the fun that we have. As always, make sure you're subscribed here. If you're listening to this on audio and podcast, make sure you go to your platform of choice, leave a review, rate the podcast, all that good stuff. Leave a comment here on the show. It helps, all that algorithm, all that nonsense. But Desrin, my friend, it's always good to talk to you. It's always good to have a in-depth discussion with you.
This one felt super good, and I hope this continues, and I am so glad that we're doing these and talking as we are, and hopefully our community is getting the vibe.
Yeah, chicken soup for the Pantheon lover soul. Yep. That's what it is. All right, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
So long, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Therek at Pantheon Therek on Twitter, and Desrin at Desrin Does also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.